Good morning and welcome to the second season of Questions for Lawyers. I'm your host, board certified civil trial lawyer Jeff Adelman, and with me today is my friend Kenneth Chang, who does immigration law, a topic that is certainly in the news pretty much every day over the last few years. So, we're going to be asking him some questions relating to the immigration process, some of the current events going on right now in the world, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And the purpose of doing this show, as I've said before, is we want to make sure that people feel comfortable speaking with lawyers about their problems. So I've taken it upon myself to bring on people who I trust, who I know are good practitioners, to speak about what they do and answer some of the basic common questions that people have when they need the services. Ken, it's great to see
Good
you as
morning, Jeff. Thank
always.
you so much.
I've known Ken for over 10 years. We had a mutual friend, Mr. Ed Phillips, who you used to work for,
Yes,
and was a great man. It passed away many years ago, but he brought us together, and I'm certainly glad to have you here with us today.
thank you so much for having
Can
me.
you tell my audience a little bit about your practice?
My practice primarily involves immigration law. I do other things as well, family law, some litigation, but primarily 80%, 90% of my practice is immigration law.
How did you get into this area? I mean, I do personal injury, other people do criminal. How do you get into immigration? What was it about that area of the law?
Well, my family immigrated to the United States. I was the first generation born here in the United States. So growing up, I never really knew about the immigration system
Hmm.
because I was American born here. However, as I started practicing law, I started working as a tax lawyer.
Okay.
Then I switched and I worked for an immigration attorney for 6 months. And when I started doing that, I saw that a lot of immigrant families came to the United States. Back home, they're professionals, but when they come to the United States, they're dishwashers, waiters, and they struggle hard to make a good living for their children. And so I saw the difficulty that they experience, and I saw that a lot of immigration attorneys would scam them and promise them things and would not deliver. So I felt that I needed to provide service to them. So that's how I started in immigration work.
Well, that's very admirable. Tell me, when somebody comes into your office, what are the majority of the type of clients that you represent? Meaning, what type of matters are you usually handling for people?
We have two types of clients. The first ones would be legal immigrants, and they would be here. They have a family member, or let's say they got married to a U.S. citizen or a Cuban, and they want to legalize their status.
Mhm.
That's the first type of clients. The second type of clients we have are people who are illegal. They're illegal, or they got caught in the system. Immigration picked them up, and they're in the middle of deportation proceedings.
When you say illegal, um, I mean, I have a cursory knowledge of immigration. I don't practice immigration
Right.
law, but are you talking about people that have like overstayed their visas?
Well, there are two types as well, mainly two types. There are people who are they entered legally and they overstayed, and there's the other individuals who entered without inspection. They crossed the border.
If somebody comes in and they just cross the border, can you really help them?
It depends. If they just entered the country recently and they have a fear of returning back to their home country, we can probably apply for asylum. However, there are other individuals who came here many years prior. Let's say they've been here for over 10 years. There's a process called cancellation of removal. Cancellation of removal is when you have resided here for over 10 years.
Mhm.
You're a person of good moral character. You have not been convicted of certain offenses, certain criminal offenses, and you have a qualifying relative. And the qualifying relative can be either your parent, your spouse, or your child. But the difficult part of it is you have to show that qualifying relative would suffer exceptional and extremely unusual hardship. So that relief you can apply for. Now, the downside of that is that if you lose the case, you get ordered deported. But the upside is if you get placed in proceedings, if you win the case, you get your green card. So a lot of times for those individuals, we would evaluate the case to see how strong the case is. If it's a strong case, we would apply for relief affirmatively. If it's a weak case, then we'll say abide your time, wait until Congress changes the immigration laws, and if they pick you up, you have that as a defense to removal.
Well, we've been hearing a lot about immigration in the news since the Trump campaign and presidency, and some people have brought up that Obama deported a lot of people too. What is the difference between the Barack Obama administration and the Donald Trump administration in terms of the way immigrants have been deported?
It's the same talking points that the Democrats and the Republicans have always used. We are a nation of laws. We have to follow the laws. However, it's how you follow the laws. There's an estimate of over 14 million undocumented immigrants here in the United States. There's no way that ICE can deport every single individual. However, there's a allocation of resources. So
Right.
if I under Obama, at least Obama had he had a system. He had a priority schedule. If you're a criminal, you're a violent offender, you're a gang member, those are top priority. If you are otherwise a law-abiding person and you're just illegal, then he'll just have deferred action. He will not deport you. So that's the difference.
So what you're saying is with Donald Trump's administration, it's a much wider net.
It's a much wider net because the more people that you deport, the better it is for the news. And so and in terms of the ICE personnel, in my opinion, I believe that they would much rather go after a non-violent offender than a violent offender because it's a safety issue.
It's interesting. So with regards to the people that were being deported under Barack Obama, um, those were people that had actually had contact with the criminal justice system.
Yes.
Okay, and with Donald Trump, that's not necessarily the case.
Well, under Donald Trump, there's been people who have been reporting to Immigration Customs and Enforcement for years, and they've been ordered to report every year. And so long as they don't commit any crimes, they're allowed to stay and they're allowed to get work authorization. Under Trump, what's happening is they go in there and they have not committed any crimes. They've been following the law, and then they go to ICE one day, and ICE goes, "Okay, you're getting deported now." And it's a big shock for many families who are just trying to provide for themselves and their children, their young children who are going to school.
And I would imagine under those circumstances that a lot of people are not self-reporting.
A lot of times they go in there and they hope and they pray that nothing will happen to them, and some of them get deported, some of them are allowed to stay, and then there's a fear from those other individuals. They said, look, I have friends who got deported, so they're afraid to go there, and so they do not show up. So so it encourages people to not follow the law.
That's interesting. Now, with regards to some of the issues on the border, has that changed at all over the last few years in terms of immigration offices on the border?
Well, right now they're allocating more immigration judges from where they are stationed to go and hear cases at the border. So what
Okay.
happens is the cases that they are supposed to hear are being backed up. So cases that used to take like a year or two are being delayed because they're allocating resources to the border because they want to hear the asylum cases quicker and deny those cases.
As opposed to getting more judges.
Exactly. Well,
Okay.
right now they're last I heard they're allocating resources from FEMA in order to fund the immigration judges and the detention facilities. I have a client the other day. He got picked up, and Chrome is so overcrowded. He got sent to Monroe County. That's in Key West, and
From Broward?
from Broward.
Wow.
So he's
Okay.
in Naples. He got picked up. He was supposed to go to Chrome. Chrome is overcrowded, so he got sent to Monroe. And so there we had a hearing yesterday, and after the hearing, they sent him back to Monroe County so that the families in Naples, it's difficult for them to visit him. So they're trying to discourage people.
That's like a 7 hour drive.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, how long have you been in immigration practice? How long have you been
I've been
practicing law?
I've been a lawyer for 20. This year will be my 21st year, and I've been practicing since 2000. So over 18 years.
And these days, if somebody comes to your office and let's say they had a tourist visa and then they want to they want to get a green card. What can somebody expect to pay for those types of services?
If they came,
Ballpark.
if they came with a tourist visa and they want to get a green card,
Yeah.
but it depends on who's filing for them. So typically, the only individuals who, so if they came as a tourist and they overstayed, for example, the only way they can legalize their status without leaving the country is if there are an immediate relative. An immediate relative is a parent or a spouse of a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
Or if you're a child, you have to be under 21 and unmarried. In only those three situations, you can apply for the green card here in the United States. Typically, the filing fee would be 1,760 because the residency fee is 1,225 and the I-130 visa petition is 535. Our fee typically ranges between 2,000 to $2,500.
So that's the attorney's fee. That's not the administrative fees that you would have to pay.
Yes, the attorney's fees are between 2,000 to $2,500, and the administrative fees are 1,760.
Let's say take it away from the border in the south. Let's say somebody from Canada wants to become a United States citizen. How would they go about that process?
What Canadians typically believe that once they enter the United States, they can stay here for as long as they want, which is not true. They are treated just like any other visitor. They're allowed to stay here for only 6 months, and if they overstay, they're treated like an undocumented immigrant. So they are in the same boat, and they would have to have like a parent, spouse, or child to petition for them.
All right, well, let's say somebody is in Toronto and they want to move to Miami. What's the process for doing that?
If they are a professional,
Mm-hmm.
then they can apply for a TN visa, and they can do that either at the border or they can do that here in the United States.
And what if uh, they're not a
If they're
professional?
not a professional, they're in the same situation as everyone else.
Okay, so how much could if somebody's ultimate goal is to be a United States citizen, how much do you estimate that person would have to pay in order to accomplish that goal?
Well, the first step, of course, is they have to get their green card. So
Okay.
their green card, assuming that they go the marriage route,
Mm-hmm.
attorney's fees is 2,000 to 2,500. Filing fee is 1,760. So that's about 4,000. And for citizenship, the filing fee is 725, and our attorney's fees range from $600.
What if they're not using the marriage system to get through?
If they're not using the marriage system, they go through cancellation of removal. Cancellation of removal, it's a court process. So it depends on the strength of their case, but typically we charge around $5,000 for court representation, and the filing fee for that is $185.
So I just want to be clear. So somebody who wants to become a citizen of the United States for whatever the reason, and let's just say they are not in a situation where their spouse is an American,
Right.
okay, would it be fair to say that they can expect to plunk down about $10,000 or more?
Yes.
Okay. And how realistic is that for people that are crossing the border?
Well, crossing the border, it's very difficult because
Mhm.
typically they do not have any family members who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents. So they don't have anyone to sponsor them. So they have to go through the asylum process. The asylum process, I believe there's a 20% approval rate. So it's very, very rare that people who cross the border will actually be legal unless they have a strong case.
So it's 20%. So what happens to the 80%?
The 80%, a lot of times uh, they would they would get orders of removal and then go from there. So that's where the problem that's where that we have this broken immigration system.
Right. So they'd be removed and then they try to do it again.
No, 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 no. They'll be ordered removed.
Okay.
They'll be ordered removed, and then immigration would send them a letter. It's called a bag and baggage letter for them to show up and appear to be deported. But a lot of them, they will not show up because they know what's going to happen. So that's why they remain in the shadows. So that's why we have a problem.
And what happens if they don't show up?
If they don't show up, they become fugitives.
Mm-hmm.
They become fugitives, and once immigration finds them, they can deport.
All right, but then what I was saying was then they're deported.
They're ordered. Oh, so the
Well, you
question
said
is,
it's a cycle. That's kind of
so
what I'm envisioning.
now the immigration system, we do have a fix for that. If let's say you got ordered deported or order removed, and they actually deported you, and you re-entered without inspection, then there's a penalty. You go to jail.
Okay.
After you serve your time, then they're going to deport you again. And let's say you have a qualifying relative who spent petitions for you, the penalty is you have to remain outside the country for 10 full years, and then you can apply for a waiver to come back. If you don't wait the 10 years and apply for the waiver, you can never come back to the United States. It's a lifetime bar.
So there's 14 million people in this country that basically are living in the shadows.
At least, that's estimated.
That's an estimate.
Yes.
Now, can any of these people get IDs or anything like that?
The states are not allowing them to get IDs. It used to be the case that if you present certain documents, you could, but the states have been pretty good about not allowing them to get state IDs. Now, there are some states that I've seen that my clients come in with a state ID from these other states, but they have to state that they live there, which is not.
Which is a lie.
Yeah, which is a lie.
Well, that's a real problem because you got these people who are living in the shadows. We don't know who's here, and we're not giving them any incentive to let us know that they're here.
That's why there was a proposal a couple years back. It's a comprehensive immigration reform, and in that system, what they were thinking about doing was to um, give you earned legalization. Basically, if you've been here for a certain number of years and you know how to read and write English, you pass the test,
Mhm.
then you are able to pay some penalties, some monetary fines, and then you can get your green card that way. However, there are politicians who argue that's an amnesty, and so that went viral and in the news, and then people said, no, we don't support amnesty. But the thing is, in
Mhm.
my opinion, I believe it's better to provide a legal way to legalize these 14 million individuals who are not criminals, have them pay penalties, have them pay taxes, file tax returns. It contributes to the economy, and that would legalize the non-criminals. Now, the criminals, they won't apply for this system because they have to go through background checks.
Right.
So then you would have only the criminals who are in the shadows, and the non-criminals would be supporting members of society. So that would be good, and that would pump money into the system because immigration filing fees would help. But
It also lessen the amount of people living in the shadows that are taken advantage of by employers who hire undocumented aliens.
right, and that affects the economy as well, because if you hire an undocumented immigrant, then they'll agree to accept less wages, and that would affect the American workers as well. So, but the problem is that when you demonize immigrants, then that's the problem. That's a big problem.
I had a interesting teaching moment with my sons, Ben and Jacob. We were driving up to Orlando. We stopped in a small town. There was this blue, decrepit school bus.
Mhm.
And all of these people were getting off of it, going into the gas station to buy drinks and everything. And I had to explain to my sons, these people are all working in the fields. I'm sure that they're undocumented aliens, and so they're being paid like peanuts.
Right.
And well, they're not paying taxes, but they are basically beholden to these employers
Right.
because they could just blow the whistle on them at any time.
Exactly.
So it's a real problem, especially in this state in the farmlands for sure.
But even though undocumented immigrants do not pay income taxes because they don't have a social security number, they are helping the economy because they go in there, they make their money, then they spend, they go to the
Mhm.
groceries, they do spend, and that makes the economy run. Of course, they do send money back home to their family, but still they do contribute to the American society. But a lot of people don't um, publicize that because it's not in their best interest to make it appear that immigrants actually help this country.
Right. Well, they also the prices that we pay at grocery stores and everything else are helped by the illegal status of the immigrants. That's another thing. I mean, prices would probably go up if you didn't have
Right.
that work, which, quite frankly, isn't really, I mean, it's selfish on our part to want
Right.
that at their expense, but that's the reality of it. Are there any proposals that you've seen, Ken, for immigration? You mentioned about earned citizenship. You thought that that was something that should be explored. Any other ideas that you've heard that you think would help this issue that we have in America?
Well, immigration has been a very hot topic lately, and it's been here in the United States. Um, and I think for the next election, the Republicans and the Democrats are trying to explore both sides. The Republicans, they're trying to explore the option of what is called merit-based system. And in the merit-based system, they're saying we want the best and the brightest to come to the United States. In exchange for that, I mean, it makes sense. It's similar to the Canadian system.
Sure.
Okay. However, they, in exchange to having a merit-based system, they're going to eliminate the right of a U.S. citizen and a permanent resident to file for their family. So currently, in the news, if you notice, they're saying that we have a system where people have children to have anchor babies, and then
Mhm.
once you're here in the United States, you file for your parents, you file for your cousins, your uncles, and unlimited number of relatives, which is not true. A citizen can only file for a sibling, a parent, a spouse, and a child, whether it's married or unmarried. Okay, a permanent resident can only file for a spouse or a child, unmarried and over or under 21 years of age. Now they're planning on eliminating the entire system and replace and a U.S. citizen or permanent resident can only file for a spouse or a child who's under the age of 21 and unmarried. You no longer will have the ability to file for your parents. So people like Melania Trump will not be able to file for her parents. You know, but
That's interesting because if you're going to have that strict of a rule, it's going to affect a lot of people on the other side. That might not think it would affect them.
right.
Um,
But on the other side,
mhm,
the Democrats are their proposal is they want deferred action for childhood arrivals. That's the DACA, right?
mhm.
And they're talking about the Dream Act. So if you're here before the age of 16, you've been, you were brought here by your parents. It was not within your control, and you complete high school, and you're not a criminal. They'll give you a green card.
What's
So
what's going on with DACA at this point?
DACA is something that they're dangling, and they're saying, okay, if you want this, we'll extend DACA. It's in the courts right now, so they're not allowing new DACA cases.
Mhm.
But if you already have DACA, then you can renew it.
Well, it seems like with regards to DACA, if you came out of the shadows to use that against people after they were given a promise,
Right,
um, just it's just well, that's a breach of contract, but
right,
it's also immoral to do that if you've already made that promise, regardless of who the president of the country is. I can understand, not continuing it or putting a cutoff or something like that, but just seems, that's you know completely un-American to
yeah,
pull the rug out
right.
from under. Well, Ken, we could talk about immigration all day because there's always something going on this subject right now. There's so many other things that I could want to talk to you about, but at the end of the day, um, can you give our audience some tips if they know of anybody who is seeking a green card or is applying for U.S. citizenship as to the best way to do that?
The best way is probably to go to see an immigration attorney.
Okay.
Because right now, a lot of people think that USCIS they revamped their website. Everything seems so user friendly. You can just go online and check your case status, and you can get notifications on your cell phone. So it seems very user friendly.
Mhm.
However, when you actually go to USCIS, I've been doing this for uh, over 20 years, and I've noticed a big change. The officers are different. Their priorities are different. It used to be the case that when you apply for citizenship, they just determine whether or not you read and write English. You can pass the civics test, which is a list of 100 questions, and you study from the list of 100 questions. You get they ask you 10, you get six right, and you pass. That's usually how citizenship works in the old days. Nowadays, what they do is they actually go in and evaluate whether or not you got your green card correctly. They would go if they determine that your green card was not lawfully acquired, they will try to deport you. So that's a new thing that they're really aggressively pursuing nowadays. So a lot of people get trapped because they say, "Oh, citizenship is such an easy process. We don't need an attorney." They go in there and then they start asking them questions. How did you get your green card? You got it through marriage, and now you're no longer married to your wife, and your wife got remarried to another person who she sponsored, and you're like, "I didn't know that. We broke up for legitimate reasons." And then they said, "No, no, no. We believe that it was a fake marriage. Prove that that marriage was real," and then you're caught off guard. And so that's what is happening nowadays. So I suggest at least do a consultation with an immigration attorney and evaluate your case to see whether or not you need an attorney to go with you or represent you or not. A lot of times I do a consultation and I determine you don't need an attorney to represent you at the interview, and then I'll let the client know, because it's optional. But even with an attorney representation at the interview, what's been happening is they disregard the attorney's presence. And I had an interview in Fort Myers the other day where the I objected to the line of questioning, and then the officer goes, "This is not a court of law. You cannot object." And I'm like, "Of course I can object." And then I asked to speak to a supervisor, and he refused me access to a supervisor. So he denied the case, but we filed an appeal. So we will pursue the appeal, and I'm pretty sure we will win. But it just goes to show the attitude that USCIS currently has against um, the immigrants.
Yeah, you can't object, really.
You cannot
Why
object.
even have a lawyer?
Exactly.
I had an insurance examiner try that with me when I'm like, you can't tell me I can't object. I'm like, it's attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's why I'm here. That's
Exactly.
exactly why people hire lawyers, so that, to make sure that the questions are on the up and up and that you're acting legally.
Right.
So that's ridiculous. Um, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can do that?
They can call me at my office. My office number is 954-431-3570. I'm located in Cooper City. We're across the street from Cooper City High School, so you can do a Google search on that. But the actual address is 9700 Sterling Road, and we're at Suite 109, Cooper City, Florida.
And as you were just stating, you were over in Naples. You have cases throughout the state?
Yes, we have cases throughout the state. We have cases outside the state as well. We have cases
Really?
in New York, California, because as an immigration attorney, we can represent people nationwide. So long as I'm licensed to practice in one state, which I am in the state of Florida, I can practice anywhere within the United States.
Well, again, I'm sure you've been extremely busy the past few years. And if you do need an immigration attorney, I can highly recommend Mr. Chang. He's in Cooper City. I sincerely appreciate you being here
Thank you
with
for
us
having me.
today to talk to us about your practice. My next show is going to be on September 11th. I'm going to have Major Bill Gordon on. We're going to do a little bit of a change. Major Gordon is a veteran police officer, and we're going to be talking about his career, 9/11. We're going to be talking about changes in policing. He actually worked on a disciplinary board as well to talk about what the process is when a police officer is being disciplined, and just talk about what they go through. I thought it would be interesting for everybody to hear. But again, all of our shows are available on questionsforlawyers.com. And in addition to that, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, we have everything available for you to listen to at your leisure. I appreciate all of you watching. Again, my name is Jeff Adelman. And if you have any questions, my number is 954-341-2777. Good seeing you, Ken.
Good seeing you. Thanks.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.